Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
It's one of the most brutal and challenging racetracks in the entire world. It's Imola. It's an absolutely glorious day for racing. I'm Aaron Smith, and you're welcome back for the iRacing Formula 3.5 Championship. And I'm joined alongside with Chaz Draycott and Oliver Quoker here alongside me. And wow, we got qualifying underway at the moment. We're just over halfway through, and so far, Yuki Shirakawa on pole position. Very unusual for him. We haven't seen him up there in qualifying all season, but maybe this is his time to shine finally, as I think everyone's just getting their last few laps in. Zamborski goes second, and it's a fairly short lap round here, only about 1 minute and 30 seconds. And wow, Yuki Shirakawa on pole position.
Yeah, fantastic job by Yuki in the opening stages of this qualifying session. Like you say, not many laps for them to get done here, but awesome, awesome stuff by the Japanese driver. It's not often we don't see Zamborski right up there at the top. Josh Stewart is currently third ahead of Omar Baha, then Sergio Matias in fifth position. He's just coming around the final corner now, and he's actually just about to... No, he is on a time lapse, sorry. He's already on a time lap. My software just hadn't ticked over to say he'd already done one. Finishes his second lap, and he's on a 1:28.90 at the moment. It's very, very close, though, between the top couple of drivers, actually. It's not massive amounts of gaps, is there?
Yeah, I mean, it is a fairly short track, sure, but it's so technical and one of the most difficult tracks to get right, not only on the iRacing service, but just in general in the entire world. I, for one, am a massive fan of this track. I adore it to pieces, and I just love the challenge. It's such a driver's track, and I think a lot of people would agree with me there. Chaz, have you actually ever been here in your life?
I have, yes. I went in May last year, but then the year before that I was there with Clio Cup Europe in July, and let me tell you, Imola in July with the humidity, it's rather warm. It was about 38.5 degrees when I landed in Bologna, and it was about 80% humidity, and it was horrible. And then I realised that the little Fiat 500 I had for the weekend had aircon, and that was probably the best news I had all week. But it is a real challenge, like you say. It's such a difficult circuit. It's a beautiful place to go as well. It's really amazing. It's quite eerie, though, when you walk around through the forest and see the Senna statue. I must admit, it creeped up on me, and suddenly you're sort of hit by this wave of emotion. It's very, very strange. But you do feel that sort of ominous presence of this circuit when you go there. It's amazing how much there is a weird buzz around this track, even when there's nothing going on. And, you know, it's a massive challenge to the drivers. Loads of curbs, loads of very important lines through these corners that you have to absolutely nail. It's not a circuit where you see about 5 or 6 lines around certain hairpins, but I suppose it's just one of those where it's a bit more of an old school circuit. Yes, it's been changed over the years, but it's still a very, very good one at heart and still has some of its old DNA.
Yeah, definitely. I would say it's better than the old track that they used to run in like the early 2000s. I think getting rid of that chicane down the main straight was a massive improvement. It kind of used to kill the flow of the track, but yeah, this track is absolutely gorgeous. And one man who is taking advantage of this gorgeous track is Yuki Shirakawa on pole position. Eddie Zamborski lines up unsurprisingly alongside Josh Stewart in third, Omar Baha in fourth, Sergio Macias in fifth, Dennis Furkheim 6th, Marcus Alacron in 7th, Cal Young in 8th, I am Keyman in 9th place, and Eric Wizamowski rounds out your top 10. Then it's James Byrne and Jay Lawrence on the 6th row of the grid, Valero Tavares in 13th, Denny Cornu in 14th, Takashi Shindoi in 15th, Daniel Gallis in 16th, Jamie Byrne and Ennis Akin round out your, I believe that is your 8th row of the grid. Adam Whitworth and Leon Hernandez in 19th and 20th, and your 2 drivers who did not set a lap time, Chris Rene and Luke Brooker, rounding off your 22 car grid. We got about another minute for these guys to line up on the main straight. You can't really call it a straight, it's a slight right and left kink, and well, Turn 1 should be fun, as if you've watched any of the recent Formula 1 races, it can get a bit tight and narrow into Turn 1 and Turn 2.
It definitely can. It's a very difficult car to get off the line as well, and luckily we have a resident expert on this machine in the commentary box with us tonight. Oliver Quoker joins us in the box, and he's going to be talking us through some of the expertise behind getting this car off the line. Oliver, I mean, launch control is a big thing here, but with the amount of torque and power this machine's got, it can be a big old nightmare, can't it?
Yeah, of course. I mean, this car has, as you said, a lot of torque, and there are actually 3 methods of starting this car. And as we've seen all season long, Yuki is one of the, if not the best starter of this series. So let's see how he gets away from this one.
Well, Yuki Shirakawa is one of the best starters on the entire grid. As Oliver said, it's lights out and away we go here in Imola. And as usual, he gets off to an absolute flyer. And so does Josh Stewart, challenging Eddie Zamborski for 2nd place. Already as they enter Turn 1, Eddie just a little bit braver on the brakes. Yuki Shirakawa, using his good starts to his advantage, pulls away nicely so far. There's a car off in the background. I believe that's Gallis, all the way down off in Tamburello. Sergio Macias, though, a good start from him. He's gained a place, and that's Shirakawa!
Oh, no.
Yuki Shirakawa doing it way too, over the top through Villeneuve. It's very easy to do, though. It's one of those circuits, one of those corners where you have to take a specific line through there. If you hit the inside curb, you'll then hit the outside curb, and then you dip a wheel on the gravel on the left-hand side, then it's going to spit you off into the wall. I think we're going to see that here, Aaron. Watch on the outside. And it just unsettles it on the Astro. Wow, that's actually quite an odd accident to have, because normally we see people clipping the gravel, and that's what throws them over, isn't it?
Yeah, he just bottomed out. We usually run this car very, very low to the ground, and these curbs in Imola are very, very high. So it's very easy to just scrape the under tray along the curb and lose all amount of grip. You just lose the car instantaneously. You can't really feel it until it's already too late, so that's unfortunate for Yuki there. Let's hope he hasn't got any damage.
I think he took an absolute battering into that wall. It looked like his suspension was completely broken front wing as well, and I think that's probably going to be the end to his race. There's not really much he can do now. Bit of a shame, as I thought maybe for once someone can challenge Zamborski. But once again, we are denied a battle for the lead. So far, you never know what the drivers behind can do. But judging by qualifying pace and the gaps at the moment, Zamborski seems to love being in first place right now. He's sort of already pulling away from Stewart behind. It's around an 0.8 of a second nearly. And Macias behind as well, 1.7 behind. And yeah, I think we've been denied another fight for the lead again.
Well, it's a big shame, but still, it's just one of those performances now that we're going to see, I'm sure, from Eddie Zamborski. It just shows you how good he is. He's one of these drivers that doesn't sort of fall into complacency when he's at the front of the field. You know, he doesn't get distracted by anything. He just keeps his head in the game, and flies on forward. We've had a bit of drama a bit further back down the order. I was just going to mention as well, Chris Rene Rosenkrantz has gone up 10 places in the opening lap or so in this race, and he's moved up into 11th position. The only other driver that's gained anywhere near that is Luke Brooker, who's gained 6 spots from the very back of the grid. So fantastic first opening lap from Rene Rosenkrantz. But we've got a great train of cars here in the midfield.
Yeah, I personally know Rosenkrantz from doing Formula 3 with him, and he was an absolute weapon in that car. He competed in IGP Fun. Yes, in a good way. He competed in IGP Fun, got a few wins as well, even competed in Apex's very own F3 League as well, and was fairly decent in that as well. So we'll see how he gets on in this car. He's just moved himself up into 10th place now, gaining another spot. He really is on the move so far. And got a nice livery, I'd say.
Yeah, certainly the colours of the German flag, though. So.
I was going to say it looks more Belgian though in that livery, though. It's the same colours, but he's still a little bit Belgian if you viewed it sort of horizontally. I was going to ask Oliver, in the early stages of a race like this, when you've got a lot of cars around you and you're still getting into a rhythm, what's the best way to try and keep this car in check?
Just don't overdrive it. That's the easiest. It's easier said than done, because you always want to gain as many positions as you can, especially at the start where you don't really have the gaps between the cars. The dirty air doesn't affect your car too much, but it still can affect you, as we see. I think Jay Lawrence off the track there ran a little bit wide. Let's hope he doesn't get a slowdown, which can easily be, well, you can easily get a slowdown there. That's what I wanted to say. And Denis Cornu actually went past him there. So another spot for the Frenchman.
Yeah, I think slowdowns are... It seems to be an issue mainly on Italian tracks. Monza is a pretty bad one for slowdowns, especially into turn 1 now, that they rearranged all the off-tracks and slowdowns. And this track is also a little bit guilty, although it's fairly difficult to sometimes, since the curbs, as you rightly mentioned, Oliver, are death traps. They are so high, especially in a car like this, where if you dare even think about going near them, the car just shoots off in the other direction, as we saw what happened to Yuki. Just even slightly got on the curb and just completely looped it. But yeah, at the moment though, Rosenkrantz might even be able to get 12th spot, up 12 spots if you can get past James Byrne. He's all over the back of him, going for a move into Tozer, but just not really an overtaking corner, if I say so.
Well,
yeah, he's trying it again.
Yeah, I was going to say, he's on fire at the minute. Let's hope he doesn't get burned. Oh, no. Well, he burns Byrne, gets past him, self-rights him effectively. I'm thinking Robot Wars here as well. Oh, Denis Cornu looks down the inside, and Verkheim's had an off.
Oh,
Verkheim has gone off at Aqua Minerale, and he's lost the nose of the car there as well, Oliver. That's going to feel like a bag of spanners now, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, luckily he doesn't. He just have half a lap to go back to the pits, and we have another crash. Omar Baha into the wall at the exit of Variante Alta.
Oh, don't do that.
Well, he did all right there, I think, but it's still a scary moment when you're the car coming over the hill, especially when you've got no nose cone on the thing as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see in the background, I definitely think Verkheim got on the edge of that curb as well, as you were just saying. And I think Baha's going to get a little bit too bumpy over the second curb, and tries to put the power down. And oh dear, that's the old iRacing physics coming into play for you.
Yeah.
And who was that hit him there? Was that Alarcon?
I think that was Alarcon.
Yeah, he's smacked into him there and bounced him around in the air. Yeah, comes in to get that damage fixed, and well, just shows you, doesn't it, how easy it is to make a mistake here, Aaron. I mean, I had it a lot in the league I was running with them. This car is so on the edge all the time that it can just spin around one lap and then not another. You know, you can get away with it on one lap. And look at Rosenkrantz. He's absolutely committed into Tozer, isn't he?
Yeah, I will say, remembering racing with Rosenkrantz, he's very aggressive. So I think the other drivers are just going to have to be a little bit cautious when they see him in his rearview mirror. It's a bit like Verstappen just sort of sees a gap, I'm going in it. And if you choose to go in that gap as well, we're going to end up in a crash, which is what happened with James Byrne. And Keenan as well up front, struggling a little bit. I think Rosenkrantz might have just gotten an off track there. Coming through Aqua Minerale as we head into very anti Alta now. As I think something's happened to Brooker. That's the same as Verkheim.
Yeah, let's see what happened to him.
Yeah, just coming out of Aqua Minerale, it seems like this car really struggles to get onto that curb, and I think that's why a lot of these drivers are actually slightly cutting the corner, maybe even firming the off track. But we're going to see what actually did happen to him. Did he lose it before? A little bit, just on the exit of Acqua Minerale, just loses all traction.
Yeah, it's that sort of the rise up the hill, the way that the car suddenly gains all the grip, and well, there's Jamie Byrne losing all of the grip. But with the big rise out of Acqua Minerale, oh, flipping heck, I don't think he really wanted to reverse that far. But with the rise up the hill, as it sort of the circuit comes at you as you get out of there, suddenly the front end's got all the grip in the world, and the rear end hasn't quite gained the same amount of traction yet. So you have to really be careful. As Jamie Byrne now under attack here from Eric Virajimski. He goes down the inside into Tamburello, and through he goes. And that's the thing, around Tamburello, somewhere especially like this, at this part of the circuit, especially in that hard braking zone, Oliver, it's really easy to make a move and then compromise the other driver quite a lot, where they have to adjust, don't they?
Yeah, but in the end, you don't really care about the other driver. This is the unfortunate thing in the top split races. We care about each other a lot in terms of community-wise, but if we are on track, we just do what we can to gain as many positions as we can, and as long as we don't, well, push someone off the track, everything goes, really.
I can definitely relate to that in something like Formula 3. Even I was doing IMSA yesterday, top split, and that was brutal to say the least. And yeah, I think it's just top split in anything, in 3.5, Formula 3, Formula 4, GTs, whatever it is. I think just the higher up you go, just the more aggressive people can be. And I think Rosenkrantz needs to be careful of Alarcon. Alarcon is, of course, getting the blue flags now. He's not obliged to move out of the way, of course. In iRacing, he has a choice. But it's mostly the best thing to do, just move out of the way of the cars that are lapping you. It's very sportsmanlike, as he is doing right now. Not to disturb the battle for pretty much all the top spots right now, as Rosenkrantz is still under a little bit of pressure from Kieman behind and is losing pace to the top three. But nevertheless, at the moment, up 17 spots. That's the most I've seen in 3.5 so far.
Yeah, it just shows you, doesn't it, about getting his lap wrong in qualifying. It really throws him to the back, and then
I don't think he did so.
No, well, that's it. Just being able to sort of make his positions up through the order, you know, it's really, really solid. And well, I mean, he's just shown exactly that aggressiveness that you mentioned there, Aaron, and it's worked for him so far. He's not quite able to run away from Kieman. There's a little bit of slipstream holding them together, but Denis Cornu is also making his way through this group at the front. He's gained 6 places in this race after starting 14th, so he's definitely got a little bit more in the tank here to try and break into that top 5.
Yeah, definitely. I think we've seen Cornu be one of the more silent drivers, I'd say, this season. Always within the top 10 and just kind of runs his own race. And, yeah, just a fairly consistent, nice driver, very smooth, and doesn't really get himself involved in incidences. I think Shirakawa has pulled into the pits to call it quits. I do not blame the man. He's basically going to be running in 21st the entire time. But yeah, real shame for Shirakawa, as we were talking about just before the broadcast got started, how he is quick, but just needs to tone down the mistakes a little bit, and maybe he can challenge for victories, but who knows. As this is Gallus fighting Shindoi for 12th place. It's not an overtaking spot into Villeneuve. Looked down the inside, but I think ultimately it was not the overtaking spot he really wanted to go for. As Oliver, where would you say is a good place to overtake on this track?
Well, this track is very similar to tracks like, for example, Manicura and Fuji, where we went previously, where you only have 1 or maybe 2 overtaking spots, of course, into turn 1 after the long, well, straight that isn't straight, as you previously said. But yeah, it's very easy to defend here, but you just have to get a good run out of the last corner, and then just try to be as close to the car as possible to get a good run out of the corner, because the problem here is you run into the ref limiter very, very early. So you can't have the amount of overspeed during the slipstream, or yeah, just to overtake him, you'd really have to get a good run out of the corner. For example, now Gallus is a little bit too far away to get Shindoi. It's very, very difficult to overtake you, but it's so rewarding if you actually do.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you there. I think we were seeing, I think, however many weeks ago at Fuji, yeah, like you say, this car does hit the rev limiter extremely quickly, combining the slipstream and possible DRS as well. It really does hit that rev limiter so quick. And yeah, I gotta agree with you with the limited amount of knowledge I do have on this car. I can sort of tell where you do need to be strong when going for an overtake, as corner exit is so important. Like there, Gallus gains so much time, but just isn't quite close enough to go for a move into Toza. As this middle sector, not really any overtaking spots, unless the car in front of you makes a mistake, of course. You have this corner, which I think if any of you saw the Formula 1 Grand Prix last year, where Gasly and Guan Yu Zhou went together, didn't really end well. You have Aqua Minerale here, which, yeah, good luck trying to overtake into this corner. And then you have very anti-outer, which we're coming up to this next right-left chicane. It's a very beautiful combination of corners, but once again, very difficult to overtake. As Oliver was saying, it's such a narrow and yet rewarding track. As we see now, Gallus just starting to slip back. He really does not get a good exit around that final corner. We're starting to see as Cao Young now under pressure from the two behind, Byrne and Cornu, just on the back of him at the moment. Fairly decent distance back that Young can just relax at the moment. Just in that rearview mirror, he must be panicking though. Just seeing those two bright cars, especially the livery of James Byrne and Jemmy Byrne. They both have very bright liveries and can always put one off. But we've got Chaz back. Chaz, I got a big question for you.
Oh no.
If you were going to go for an overtake, as I asked Oliver, where do you think would be a good place to overtake on this track?
I think I'd try and save it for Tamburello, to be honest with you. It seems like the most obvious option as a driver, but I think really, if you're trying to catch somebody off guard, you maybe try and just swoop in at Aqua Minerale. It just depends on if you've got drivers behind you as well, so you don't want to compromise yourself and put your own race under attack from someone behind. So I think it depends. Say now Cal Young disappears up the road from Byrne and Cornu. If you were Cornu, you'd maybe think, yeah, let's just send it at Aqua Minerale. You know, we don't have to worry about sticking with the guy in front too much. Let's just go for a move, get the place, and think about the bigger picture after that. But if it was any sort of other normal manoeuvre, I'd be lining it up down here. They do hit the limiter early, as we were mentioning before. But, of course, down in towards Tamburello, well, you still get the slipstream, you still get the overspeed, and then you've just got to try and outbrake them, as we're going to see now with Byrne around the outside and then the inside. That's a lovely move. That's exactly what you want. Textbook stuff.
That was a really good move from James Byrne. And we've seen that move be attempted by certain drivers, not only in 3.5, but as I've said before, in the likes of Formula 1, you know, we've seen Lewis Hamilton and Max go through there side by side and it not really end well. But round the outside of Tamburello, with those curbs trying to, well, stare you in the face of death, that was incredible bravery, and he's got past, and deservingly, I'd say. Let's see what he can do from here, as he seems to be a little bit quicker than Young and Cornu behind, although they seem to all be relatively the same pace. But yeah, through Aqua Minerale, they're gained around 0.2 of a second, and I think Young might be under pressure from Cornu in a sec as we come into this wonderful chicane. Once again, it's a very challenging chicane, especially in a car like this, which Oliver has mentioned a few times, where this car does not like curbs at all. And yeah, very anti-outer has one of the fattest curbs I've ever seen in all of motor racing. And heading into the final two corners, Ravazza 1 and Ravazza 2. Fairly simple sequence of corners, two 90-degree lefts, and this long straight, which these cars usually can reach their max speed if they are in DRS and also in the slipstream. As Young is now going to try and go for another move. Is he going to try and replicate what James did just a lap ago? He's actually sitting behind for now. We're just about halfway through this race, so maybe he's playing the long game, but we'll find out soon enough, as Cornu also probably doing the same. But so far, your top three just absolutely running away with it. Zamborski, Stewart and Macias, mainly in a group of their own, but mentioning that, Rosenkrantz is closing the gap to Macias a little bit, and now we'll see what he can do by the end of this race.
Just looking down the order, sorry, just to see if there were any of the battles, and it looks like we had Enis Aikin having a scrap there with Wierzymski. They've just swapped around again. The Polish driver getting ahead for P14. Just ahead of that as well, Takashi Shindoi and Daniel Gallis were having a good old scrap as well. Actually, Daniel, of course, recovering from the earlier drops of positions in the race. He went completely backwards after that opening little spin off the road. But we were, of course, distracted from that by Takashi. Sorry, not from Takashi. It was his countryman, Yuki Shirakawa, that was off the road. Here is Shindoi now, looking in his mirrors, of course, at Daniel Gallis all over him. And the run down to Rivazza. Another pretty decent overtaking opportunity, actually, isn't it, Oliver? It's just that, I mean, while Aaron did call it simple before, Rivazza won the entry to it. It's very difficult downhill in these cars with no ABS.
Yeah, it is. That's why you usually don't try to overtake there, because most of the times it goes wrong. So, but if people are actually trying, then, as I said previously, it is even more rewarding. Although it is not that, well, it is, maybe it is quite easy to overtake into Rivazza 1, but it wouldn't be that smart, because you can then easily re-overtake the car
on the main straight.
Exactly. So that's why people usually don't overtake there, just to save themselves, really.
Yeah, that's one point which I was probably about to make. It kind of depends how the other car gets the exit coming out of Anti-Alta. If they got a decent exit, but you've got a better one and you've got a run on them, I'd say just sit behind them and keep as close to them as you can and slipstream them down the main straight. But yeah, if they got a really bad exit out of here, like they nearly lost the car, then yeah, you don't really have a choice, and you kind of have to go past them and hope that you can defend into turn one. Yeah, Oliver, you were saying as well, it is really easy to defend on this track. A lot of the time you can just sit on the inside, and as long as you hit your braking markers and you're not too late, like there, Tavares nearly missing Rivazza 1, locking a brake there. As long as you hit your braking spots and defend the inside, it should be a fairly easy task.
Yeah, exactly, because the car behind has basically two problems. First one is, as the car in front has, this car is very, very twitchy on this track. To be fast, you need a very, very twitchy setup, just to make the car very nervous and very responsive. Yeah, responsive. Sorry. But also the problem for the car behind then is he has all the dirty air, and in this car the dirty air is very, very tricky. Plus the very nimble car, which adds up to a very, very dangerous combination where you can lose a lot of time and, yeah, well, even races.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to agree with you there. And I also think the way that this track is laid out, the outside line, if you are going side by side, is just a lot trickier, because a lot of these corners are chicanes. For example, Tamburello, very Anti-Alta, Villeneuve, they all are very tight chicanes, most of them being left-rights. The only one that isn't is Anti-Alta. But yeah, it's that outside line, especially if it's going to put you onto a big, massive, chunky sausage curb, like it does most of the time on this track. The outside line just isn't viable. The only overtake I've actually seen on the outside is Byrne on Young, which, as we rightly mentioned, it was a fantastic overtake. But yeah, apart from that, the inside line is the safest line. Wouldn't you agree, Chaz?
Yeah, it's one of those things, isn't it? I suppose you've just got to try and take every moment as it comes in a race like this. That's the thing. So much can change oh so quickly. And I think right now, these drivers are taking anything they can get. Here's Wierzymski moving to the left-hand side. And he's going to try and sweep past Gallis. Gallis instantly gets back into the slipstream again. Is he going to try and have him back on the brakes into Tamburello? No, he's not. He's going to see just what Eric does with it. And to be fair, Eric gets a fantastic run through Tamburello. We've seen just how quick he can be as well. And he's actually still 3 places down on where he started in this race. Started 10th on the grid. Not that the maths is very difficult. But right now in front of him is Takashi Shindoi, who's been doing a decent job so far to hold off the advances of Daniel Gallis. I'm not sure that he's going to be able to hold off Wierzymski for very long with the pace that the Polish driver has.
No, I'm going to say that as well. I think the Polish driver is on an absolute flyer right now. Yes, he has lost quite a lot of spots since the race started, but nevertheless, a comeback is always possible, and he's proving that right now as he gets a fantastic exit, excuse me, off the exit of Akaminerali. But like I said, it is best to just sit behind and pinch Shindoi onto that inside line, which is going to give Eric the better exit. Not quite good enough to go for a move, but again, as I was saying, it's best to just sit behind for now, as that's Young getting past Byrne again for 6th place. They are just going into Tozer right now and Villeneuve. And yeah, Eric Wysomowski now, he's got the opportunity here to open the DRS, get into that slipstream and get past Shindoi. And Shindoi doesn't really seem to be defending at all, leaving him the most amount of room I've ever seen in my life, actually, giving him more than enough space, and that puts Eric nicely up another place.
Yeah, nice stuff. Really good move there from Eric. Really tidy indeed. And you know what? Just before the session tonight, when we started going live, what's it called? A broadcast, that's the one. I was obviously getting a new track map up because regardless of how well you know circuits, it's always nice to have a track map anyway, just as a quick reminder of corners. And since 2021, Variante Alta has not been Variante Alta. It's now called Curva Fausto Grissini. And to me, that's blasphemic indeed. It's almost like when they tried to call Parabolica Curva di Alboreto, as it apparently is now. I still do not agree with that. It's still Parabolica. So it's one of those things. It's always going to be Variante Alta, but apparently is Curvo Fausto Grissini, which I did not know. Back into Rivazza, I know that one, goes Denis Cornu, right now in 8th place. 6th place he's gained from where he started. James Byrne ahead of him has gained 4. Cal Young has gained 2. So definitely the dropouts from the early stages were all pretty much front runners. Yuri Shirakawa, Marcus Alarcon, Omar Baha, they've all lost over 10 places, and even Dennis Verkheim as well from the Bahamas. It's all gone downhill for those drivers, unfortunately, and that means that everyone inside the top 11, everyone from 1st down to 11th at least, has gained spots on where they started. Chris Rennie Rosenkrantz, though, what an amazing performance by him at the moment. Sam absolutely read my mind with the camera change there. But 17 spots gained at the moment, Aaron, to get up into 4th. What a drive that is.
Yeah, especially on a track like this, in a car like this, you really got to hand it to the guy. I mean, yes, he probably would have been up here during qualifying anyway, but as everybody knows the famous saying, catching up is one thing, overtaking is another, and he has proven a little bit aggressively, shoving some people out the way, but nevertheless, and benefiting from incidents ahead. He didn't. He was there for them. He took the places when they arrived and has put himself nicely up into 4th place, and possibly has the opportunity, if he can pick up the pace a little bit, to get himself onto the podium, as he's only 2 seconds off Macias and we've still got around 7 laps to go. It's not an impossible task. He just needs to up the ante a little bit, but around this track, upping the ante is not the most easy thing in the world, as we've seen some drivers do suffer with doing that, as Chaz was talking about. Even the top drivers are known to make mistakes around here, and that's why I absolutely adore this circuit. It brings out the best in everyone and really does prove who's who, and I just adore it. It's challenging, it's fun, and may not be amazing for racing, but hey, it's just nice. Plus
Yeah,
it's Italian. So.
Well, I can't agree with that one. Well, I need to agree with that one because it is Italian. But yeah, usually, as you said, Imola is a really nice track to drive on. Although the Renault is, as I said, very, very nervous, and it goes wrong very, very quickly, as I figured out in the last few races that I've done here. Not this week though. But yeah, as you said, it's a very, very nice track, and there is a reason why we have this track in the calendar. So it's always a nice track to be on.
Yeah, definitely. I don't actually think anyone hates this track. People might not like it, but nobody hates this track. I think it's impossible to hate this track. Except if you're still an Ayrton Senna fan, then I might be able to understand. That makes a lot of sense. But I think even he would admit that this track is absolutely gorgeous. Rest in peace. Anyway, getting back to the action, Rosenkrantz on that last lap gained, I think, around half a second. I told him to up the pace, and well, he's listened to me and has gone half a second quicker than Macias, and I think we might have a battle for third on our hands.
We certainly could do here. Only 1.5 seconds back from Macias, so certainly potential here. And we all know, even from just watching this race, if you hadn't seen Chris Rene Rosenkrantz before, then you have definitely had an indication now as to just how quick he is. Look at the grass that they're dragging onto the side of the circuit there from up at Piratella. There's that wonderful line that really shows you how close these guys run to the edge of the circuit to make sure they open up every corner as much as possible. Sergio Macias is going to definitely want that podium, though. And you'll bet that he's going to hate the sight of the red, yellow and black machine creeping up behind him in his rear view mirror. But the best thing to do right now in a situation like this, Oliver, is to just block out the rear view mirror and just keep your eyes on the circuit ahead, isn't it?
Yeah, focus is everything that you need right now. As I said previously, and I can't say it enough, you need to drive a flawless race without any mistakes. We saw what happened when you placed the car just 1 meter further to the left or to the right. We saw that what happened to Yuki. You just instantly penalize yourself, either with a pit stop or just, well, with a DNF. So you just need to block everything out, just run your own pace, don't overdrive the car, because that will just explode the tire temperatures, which makes it even more difficult then. So just be calm, be smooth, and just run your own rhythm.
I think that can be said for a lot of cars. I think especially beginner drivers do make that mistake, and that's Omar Barhoff coming off the track. I believe that's at Villeneuve. Yes, it is. Just about manages to keep the car. Oh no, that's at Tamburello. My apologies. But yeah, just manages to keep the car on the track, only just. But a little bit unsettling for him. I don't think he lost any places because of that. And I think that's Shindoi who's had an incident as well, going off at Tamburello as well. It's late in the race. People are starting to just make a few blunders here and there. Shindoi lost about 2 seconds and a place to Gallas, who now moves himself up into 13th place. But this man Zamborski, I don't think the word mistake has ever been uttered in the same sentence as Eddie Zamborski. He just constantly is so consistent and just, well, there you go. Fastest lap of the race from Zamborski, proving my point. He's just an absolute weapon in this thing.
And it's not even like he's on new tyres either when he's doing that. You know, these laps have done 21 tyres? No. These tyres have done 21 laps of this circuit. It's not a short lap around Imola in most cars. I mean, it's a minute and a half here in pretty much everybody's sort of record books here. And still, he's able to use these tyres to the best of their abilities. Obviously, the fuel will be depleting at this point, so yes, the car will be lighter. But one thing I'm sure Oliver can confirm for us is that when the car does get lighter, it gets even more nervous than it was before, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Then it's up to you, like how you set up the car, because you can alter the balance at the end of the race depending on, well, what anti-roll bar settings, for example, you run, because that determines how worn the front or the rear tires are. So you can control the balance in a certain way, but it certainly changes the balance of the car from the start to the finish of the race, because this car has tons of downforce. Well, not tons of downforce, but technically kilos of downforce. But it is very, very responsive, and even that changes during the race when the fuel, as you said, depletes. So it changes the behavior quite a lot, but I mean, as we have seen previously, Eddie Zamborski is a really, really quick and experienced driver, and sometimes he's even trying to set the fastest lap on the last lap, which I would never dare to do, because you can lose the car very, very quickly.
Yeah, I think always on that final lap, depending on what situation you're in, it's always just, one more lap to go, let's just bring it home. For Zamborski, it's just, right, this is my last chance to set a good lap. I think that's his mindset. And yes, even sometimes you don't even necessarily have to be the quickest driver. You just have to be good and smooth with the car, which I think a lot of beginners, like I was going to say, just make that mistake on thinking that you have to be quick every single lap, which in some cases is true. but you have to manage everything. You have to manage tires, manage fuel, of course. You have to just take care of the car so you can finish the race. And you never know, it might benefit you in the end. If you are doing, say, a longer race, you might be able to pit later because you've saved fuel, or you can extend your run because your tires are in good shape. You know,
Oh,
there's so many factors that go
Rosencrantz
into
won.
it. Oh, that's Rosencrantz, yeah. I didn't even see that.
Just
That
overdoing
was-
it at the top of the chicane. Easy to do, though, on the exit. And the thing is, he's going to have been pushing hard at this part of the race, isn't he, to try and catch up with Matthias. And what he's done now is actually put himself under pressure now from Keenan as another fastest lap of the race goes in by Samborski.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, I think we're definitely going to... Oh, actually, he's coming into the pits. That's very surprising. Maybe the only thing I can think of is maybe he got a penalty from
Yeah.
incident points.
Yeah, I think so as well. In the previous race, 2 hours ago, he was very, very quick. He was actually faster than Yuki was. He would have been a good competitor for Eddie or for Josh Stewart, but there as well he had to, to drive through the pit lane and clear his penalty because he just had too many incidents. And I think that spin, that mistake, cost him very dearly now.
Yeah, I think we saw, I think right at the start of the race, he was cutting Acro Minerale quite a bit. So, I mean, we know he got that 4x from contact with, I believe it was James Byrne when he overtook him.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think he's also been abusing track limits way too much. And unfortunately, he's just paid the price a little bit. And that's kind of brought a sour end to his race. He was up 17 spots.
Yeah, that's
a
the thing.
real shame.
I guess it's one of those, though, isn't it? Some of these drivers, they strategically plan when they're going to use the incident points and when they're not. You know, people build up to near that limit because, yes, in official racing, of course, safety rating does matter, but a lot of these guys, they have full safety rating, 8.499 most of the time. You know, they can afford to have a race where they do get close to a limit here and there because they can very easily work that back up again. They know the car so well, but it just seems like he was saving them up and using them up where he wanted to. But of course, you have to still accommodate for little mistakes like that, and all it takes is a little half spin to count as a loss of control here on iRacing. You get 2 incident points, while Sergio Macias does the fastest lap of the race now, 1:29.03. Epic lap time, that is.
Well, of course, Zamborski has got one more lap to try and best that. Who knows what sort of lap time he is going to be doing.
Sorry to interrupt you, Aaron, but he's already done a purple sector 1 and 2, and Rosencrantz back in.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I think... Actually, I don't know what he's doing.
He's calling it quits, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, talking about safety rating, he is the only driver in here who isn't in A class. He's actually B 1.3. So yeah,
right.
I think you talking about his previous race, Oliver, doesn't really surprise me. As I have said, he was very aggressive in Formula 3. He is very quick, though. I just think he does need to tone down the mistakes and crashes a little bit. But one man who doesn't need to touch anything, he's driven absolutely perfectly almost this entire race, not really put a foot wrong. It's Eddie Zamborski for the 1,000,000th time to cross the line here at Imola and win the Formula 3.5 race here today. And yeah, sets at 28.6, which actually is getting pretty close to qualifying time. I actually think he might have best his qualifying lap. I'm going to quickly check. Not quite. Only 2/10 off his qualifying lap, though. That's got to be really impressive.
Although I think he will be very angry about that when he gets into the interview, so don't be surprised.
Well, I mean, a win's a win, but
Yeah.
maybe he was hoping from a bit more from everyone else, especially Shirakawa, who, threw it away before the race even got started, really. Only about 4 corners in. At this very corner, actually, off the exit of Villeneuve, and just didn't even go on the gravel, just got too greedy with the curb, and the curb shot him off into the opposite direction and left his car limping practically. And yeah, everyone else, though, having fairly decent races in the top 10, as Cao Young up 3 spots from where he started. Our biggest mover, though, technically actually isn't Rosencrantz now. It was, but he went back into the pits and just called it quits. And I don't know why he did that, since he's now just unnecessarily lost a bunch of iRacing. But, I mean, he can make whatever choices he wants, I guess. But yeah, Adam Whitworth then, your biggest mover, up 8 spots. An incredible drive from him. Not quite making the top 10 though, but just staying out of everyone's way and just having a clean race. Coming home in 11th place, gaining a little bit of iRating, so he can be fairly happy with that result. But yeah, the top 3, a fairly silent race for them, but a pretty good one.
Yeah, that's the thing. Sometimes no news is good news, especially when you're at the front of the field like Eddie Samborski is a lot of the time. But when you make your way under the radar like that, they can actually be some of the best races. You know, they're not constantly under our watchful eyes as broadcasters, and we're not commentators cursing them. So a lot of them prefer to get away with it and perform like that.
Yeah, I really do have to agree with you there. Just a clean race can sometimes be the best one. Eddie Zamborski, then your race winner here today, coming home 10 seconds, nearly ahead of Josh Stewart. Then Sergio Macias rounding off the podium. Keeman in 4th place, Cal Young 5th, James 6th, Dennis Cornu in 7th, Valaro Tavares in 8th, Jay Lawrence in 9th, and Eric Wysomowski rounds up your top 10. Adam Whitworth in 11th, Daniel Gallis in 12th, Takashi Shindoi in 13th, Dennis Furkheim in 14th place, Yaya Entakin in 15th, Jamie Byrne in 16th, and Chris Rosenkrantz in 17th, and Luke Brooker in 18th, Omar Baha 19th, Leon Hernandez in 21st, Marcus Alacron in 20th, actually, Mr. Driver. Then your 2 finishers, your 2 non-finishers, Leon Hernandez and Yuki Shirakawa, crashing out on the first lap. Tried to get back in the race, but eventually just decided to call it quits. We actually, for once, have a driver who wants to talk to us. And we're going to drag him in right now. Joshua Stewart here, the man who finished a fairly good result in 2nd place. Josh, talk us through that race.
Hi, Aaron. Yeah, hi, guys. Well, yeah, I'm not sure what to say. I mean, Ed had just incredible pace, and I think when Yuki was out of the race very early on, that was pretty much how I thought it was going to go. I realized pretty early on I didn't have the pace to keep with Ed, so I didn't want to keep pushing as hard as I could and end up like a Charles Leclerc in the side of the barrier at the chicane. So I just settled into the pace that I was comfortable with. It kept Sergio, behind within a couple seconds, and that's all I was sort of focusing on the whole race, is just making sure he stayed out of my slipstream. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with the podium. It's been like I haven't raced in quite a while now in the soft race, so pretty stoked to first race back in a long while to have a podium.
Yeah, I'd say getting a good clean result round here is a very, very rewarding experience. As we mentioned a lot of times during the broadcast, Imola can be such a rewarding track. And tell us, how is it in this car driving around here?
Oh, it's brutal. Any corner in this car, you can be often in the barrier. You have to set up the car in a way that it's pretty tricky on the rear end, and then throw in something like Variante Alta, the chicane at the top of the hill, which you got to launch the car over to really gain lap time. It's deadly in this car, but as you said, once you put a lap together and if you can nail that chicane, it's a very rewarding experience. It's one of the ones that you put in the work and you get the result out, so happy about that.
Yeah, and well, the result paid off. A good 2nd place. I'd say coming behind Eddie Zamborski basically makes you the winner, so we're going to declare that right now. But yeah, before we let you go, is there anybody you'd like to thank?
Yeah, shout out to Jason and Meg in Team Downforce Racing. Those guys helped out a lot with setup this week. We came up with something pretty good, not quite good enough, but good enough for me to pick up a podium, which is awesome. Also shout out, we're running a bit of this is early morning racing here in Australia, so we decided to run a little private league later in the evening. That means more Australians can come along and join, so we've been racing each week with Tim Delisle and Greg Olsen and a bunch of other Downforce Racing guys and a bunch of other Australian guys, so shout out to those guys. I'll see them later tonight. And thanks to you guys as well. Good to see you in the booth, Ollie. I'll catch the broadcast later.
Well, that was Joshua Stewart, your 2nd place man. But Chazzy Chaz, we have Eddie Zamborski, and you are going to take the honours of interviewing the man.
I would certainly love to. Our race winner joins us in the box. Mr. Zamborski, you must be absolutely over the moon. Another race victory for your phenomenal campaign. What was it like around Imola this evening? Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I have to give a big thank you to Josh Stewart for backing out a little bit into turn one. That was nice, so we didn't have to try and risk it. And I gotta congratulate Yuki. I mean, I know he spun off, but I'm telling you what, guys, if he would have survived that, you would have seen something, because he's been really fast all week. I would have rather, raced him for it. I mean, he beat me fair and square on Thursday night, and it would have been much more entertaining for the commentary point of view. But it's unfortunate. And for me, the race went really well. I just tried not to make mistakes and tried not to overdrive. Every time I went through that corner, I kept telling myself either left sides or the whole car, not half and a half, because we all saw what that will give you.
Absolutely. And that's the thing around Imola, in a lot of race cars, no matter what sort of category, whether you even stretch to touring cars and GT cars, it can be a very big challenge just to avoid those curbs. But when you're in a car that travels as quickly as this, that is as fragile as this, surely you see it on the calendar and you sort of wince a little bit and think, oh no.
Oh yeah, I am notoriously awful in turn one. I've wrecked half the field in an SOF race before. And then I usually, every season I have an incident in the chicane, and I did that on Thursday, so I was good for the rest of my races. But every season, it doesn't matter. Every time we come here, it doesn't matter. Whatever it is, I just can't learn it. I mean, I try, don't get me wrong, but it's Imola. It makes you mess up. That's what it does.
It absolutely does. It really does. But it was another solid performance tonight, mate. Very, very entertaining to see. And as I said near the end of the stream, sometimes no news is good news when you're out front on your own, and they're some of the best races you can have. Maybe not the most entertaining from your perspective, but still, a win's a win. Is there anyone you'd like to give a quick shout out to before we let you go?
Absolutely. Everyone who decides to show up week in and week out, everyone who's watching, broadcast team, we've got happenings. We're trying to, improve things. We've seen some feedback that isn't ideal. And a big thank you to Josh for not making it really tough in a turn one. That was very nice. He didn't have to let out, but he did. So thank you, Josh.
It's lovely to see the sportsmanship. Well, thank you very much, Eddie. Thanks for joining us, mate, and well done on your win. And we'll see you again next time round.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Cheers. There we go, race winner Eddie Zamborski. Lovely bloke and, well, just rapid driver outright, Aaron. But it's nice to see that these drivers, they understand the racecraft and the sportsmanship that goes into making this work. It's lovely to see that.
Yeah, it really is, and you got to commend these drivers for just being calm and collected with each other, and sometimes it can just benefit everyone, as who knows what would have happened if Josh did send it into turn one. Maybe they would have crashed out, maybe Josh would have stayed ahead, who knows. But yeah, good sportsmanship between these drivers, and yeah, really unfortunate that Yuki was not able to pull off a good battle for the lead, but we've got time for one more interview, and we're going to go with, I believe this is Dennis Cornu. Hello, mates. Dennis Cornu, you'll finish it in 7th place, up 7 spots, started 14th. Mates, yeah. How are you feeling after that race?
Hello, guys. Yeah, not really easy qualifications for me. As usually, this is my worst qualification of the week, so I have to push and only to avoid the accident, and it succeeds. I think I have a good pace, but my qualifications ruin my race, in fact. So yes, I gained 7th place. It's a really good race, but I can do better if I succeed my qualifications.
Yeah, I do think though, around this sort of track at Imola, even if you don't qualify that well, if you just keep it calm, if you just run your own race, just don't make any mistakes, you can end up with a fairly decent result, as you did, finishing inside the top 7, which I'd say, considering this track isn't easy to overtake at, you did a fairly good job. And yeah, what are your plans for next week though?
Yeah, I think the next which track is next week is not Phillip Island, is Nürburgring. No, yeah, okay. I like the Nürburgring. So the Nürburgring and the Phillip Island is a really good track for me. So I hope I can do better. I have to try a lot my qualifications. But yes, as you said, if I succeed to to avoid accident. I can do like all the race. In fact, this season, my qualification is between 10 and 15, and finally I was not so long the 5 first place. So yes, I can did the next one.
Well, we hope to see you further up at Nürburgring and Phillip Island. And I do have to say, the idea of this track, this car going around the Nürburgring is an absolute joy. That middle sector is going to feel like an absolute beauty in this car. But before we let you go, mate, is there anyone you'd like to thank?
Yeah. The middle track of Nürburgring is not so. It's tricky for this car, in fact, but it's for the driver. It's really good to have these sensations on this track. I like it, and maybe we can have easily more pass on other driver.
Well, looking forward to seeing you there along with everyone else next week. Unfortunately, that is all we've got time for today. It's been an absolute glory commentating over this race for you all. I have been Aaron Smith, joined by Chaz Draycott and Oliver Croker and Semoli Kumo in the production booth. And we will see you all at the Nürburgring next week. Take care and good night.